Sox fans, wow. Welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. Hey, this is episode 268. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, doing it live on Sunday nights at 9:15 through our Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Join us if you have an opportunity. But really appreciate if you consume it through the audio. That's great. But we've been doing this live for about a year now, and it is, I think, therapeutic. Misery loves company, and boy, do we have a lot of misery going on with this 2-13 Chicago White Sox team. I don't really have any answers, Pat. Maybe we'll try to figure it out. We'll talk it out. We're going to be mad. We're going to support one another. This is a very trusted area. And if you got comments, jump in. Circle of trust. We could vent a little bit here. But again, with me, as always, chopping this up, my best friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the emotions that you should have after a 2-13 start. I think, honestly, for me, Nick, the apathy has already crept in. It's here. It's alive. It's gotten to the point where
there's nothing worse than a live apathy, when that apathy has just come over and taken you over. That's scary.
It's overcome me like just a blanket, like a sheet. It consumes me, but I still have the passion. My son's birthday party was yesterday. My happy birthday to Luke, by the way. Yeah. My son Luke turned 4 today. Had a wonderful birthday celebration yesterday. I'm sitting there and I'm talking with my brother-in-law, who, as you have maybe heard, if you've been a listener for a long time, my in-laws are all Cardinals fans. So I really know they have had a rough couple of years, but for the most part, they've had a winning organization for a long, long time. So it's hard for them to really understand my pain. And he starts asking me questions. I know he's just jabbing, right? He's jabbing at me, and he's just having his fun. And I just gain angry. I'm just angered more at the lack of caring, the lack of trying by this organization to try and be good year in and year out. And I find myself just getting fired up over that, but I don't really get fired up over the team, because this team isn't set up to win, Nick. It's just not. They're not managed well. They don't have talent. They're not going to win many games. I almost don't even blame the players for it. They're a collection of brick and mortar guys with no.
I blame Benintendi, but go ahead. I get what you're saying.
There are a lot of brick and mortar guys that are just not, built to win. They're not built to be stars on any team. They're just built to be, backups. They're built to be, average baseball players. Are not built to carry a team to wins. It's just, how can you be upset at that team? So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know about you.
No, that's a good foundation. That's I agree with a lot of that. I think I've tried to process some of it, especially this past weekend. I mean, they won one game since the last time we talked. As I mentioned, 2-13, worst start in franchise history. They are, the worst in all of baseball right now. 7.5, 8.5, something like that, games back of the first place Kansas City Royals, who are coming to town on Monday. How about that? Run differential of -51. -51. I mean, they're not even second place. Second worst isn't even close to that. So many other offensive categories we can kind of nitpick. Sunday's final, 11-4. The Reds swept the White Sox on the south side. This is the worst 15-game start in franchise history. Our starting pitchers falling off. Last time we talked, that seemed to be kind of a positive thing. Sox were kind of hanging middle of the pack in baseball. Obviously, we could hang our hat on Crochet, who was not really the highlight of the week. Nothing was really the highlight of the week. Maybe Gavin Sheets. We can talk more about that. But Soroka went on Sunday, 5 runs on 5 hits, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts in 4 2/3. Sox were outscored 27-5 in the series. Did I say it's the worst start in franchise history?
You did
So many
mention it.
people.
It's worth
So
mentioning
many
again, though.
But you're right, Pat. And hello to so many people jumping in: Trey and Drew and John and Matthew and boy, really appreciate everybody still joining us here on Sunday night. Chopping White Sox stuff up. We are a passionate fan group, and we demand more. We were promised more, and this has been going on for several years. You mentioned it. This is how this team was built. And, you go back, and what really gets me aggravated, but we knew better, right? Because we talked about this in the fall. And if you've been following the Sox for a while, you knew better. The stuff that Chris Getz was saying when he first got hired, right? All lip service, trying to sell it to the fans, especially season ticket holders, folks, investors, maybe folks that are going to be putting in serious money with this team. Well, why should I continue? Well, Chris Getz gave all these different comments, packaged them up nicely. Thank goodness we're in the AL Central. I don't think this is going to be a rebuild. We can turn this thing around, be competitive in 2024. I remember that line. You heard Jerry talk about it. I owe it to the fans. I might not be around very much longer. And then he said 10 more years, which, man, wow. It's tough to even wrap my brain around that. But giving accolades to Getz and Getz to Pedro Grifol, no other, they didn't even think anywhere else to look for another manager after that season. Should have never hired Grifol in the first place, but that's a whole slew of episodes we probably can do. And we'll probably have to when he gets canned eventually. Getz, of course, not a general manager search. He got put right into that job. Look, I get it. They were trying to say a bunch of stuff, and this is a process, and maybe down the line, this evens out. I don't know when that is. I'm not seeing any change. I'm not seeing anything, different from what we saw last year. It's worse. It's far worse. Just baseball fundamentals, letting balls drop, errors, getting picked off in the ninth, Kevin Pillar, Sydney. Thank you so much for being on and for bringing that to everybody's attention, on Twitter X with the image and the tweet. How are you getting picked off in the ninth? You're down by 5-6 runs. What is going on? Was Bourgeois, was he even there? Or is he still in the dugout, trying to read maps, with his headphones? Who's helping Kevin Pillar? Why are you off the bag? You're down 5-6 runs. I mean, where are you going? Your run doesn't even matter. The baseball IQ stuff, all this stuff, Pat, that we were told about through the offseason, we're going to be better. We're going to win on the margins, the gamer stuff, the TWTW, the heart, the baseball. That is all completely gone out the window. And by the way, you didn't build a talented roster. So to your foundational point, this team is built for this. I didn't think it was going to be this bad, and this was the month you were supposed to somehow take advantage of because you're playing the Central most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bunch of hot garbage in a bag. When I mentioned that part to my brother-in-law yesterday about, the Sox mentioning all the time that they are in the Central and they should always be competitive, and it's thank God that we're in the AL Central. My brother-in-law looked at me and he said, they actually say that out loud? And I said, yes, this organization has boasted for years, for some reason, about thank God that we're in this division because we can always be competitive, even though they've only won it, once every 10 years they win the division. So that's a real shame. I guess the disappointing part about the guys, and I mentioned the talent really isn't there, but I was really hoping for, I kind of took the bait, I guess, from Getz on the IQ and we're going to be a smarter team and we're going to win on the margins. And I don't think it would be enough to overcome. I mean, when you look at the Reds, that's a very young, very talented team that, opened a lot of eyes.
Ran all over the White Sox.
Yeah.
They just shoved it in their face.
Yeah. So that's a team that you look at across the diamond and go, that's a team that even if they had a bad day on the base paths, or even if they had a bad day defensively, they probably got enough to overcome that. We don't have that luxury, and we haven't had that luxury for a long time, Nick. Not since probably, when we won the division ourselves in 2021, when we're banging the ball out of the ballpark all the time and we're an exciting team. we were able to overcome the lack of, IQ on the base pads. We were able to overcome kicking the ball around all the time. We don't have that, and we haven't been able to have that luxury in some time. And then when you take away the star power on the team, you really are left with what you have. So I don't know when or if it'll ever get better. I don't see how this team rattles off, 3-4 games in a row. I just don't. And you had mentioned too, pardon me, about the pitching, and the starting pitching has kind of fallen off as of late. That's something we kind of talked about weeks ago. It's like this is not sustainable. This is not a sustainable thing for this pitching staff to continue on its ways with the guys that you have in the starting staff. So, Nick, I mean, I don't know. I really get, where are the answers coming from? Why are we still watching this team? So I can't remember who tweeted that to us. Remind me of why we should still watch. I guess it's just because this is all that we really have. We have the luxury, I guess, Nick, of having this. We don't have to go in with any expectation. I can be out at a baseball field all day watching my kids play and all over doing travel sports, and I can check in on my phone and go, all right, 11-4. I got you. We'll move on to the next, and not really give a crap. I guess.
But okay, I get that. And that's why it doesn't sting as much, because we expected this team to be, I don't know if bad was the right word, non-competitive. I just felt like they were going to be there. They had to play games because that was the rule, and you had to have a certain amount of players. It was a bunch of warm bodies. They had a couple guys that, could potentially, do well for themselves, contract years. And then, of course, you had Luis Robert Jr. You throw that guy out with an injury. Eloy is Eloy. I mean, this is who he is. I don't think we're ever going to get consistent baseball out of him. I just don't think his body allows it. And we'll get to Moncada, which is a really sad situation, but we really shouldn't be surprised. Yeah, it was, well, okay, they're gonna be bad. They were built for this. I mean, Ackerman's razor. I don't know if you're familiar with this philosophy. Ackerman's razor, look for the most simplest, answer in a complex problem or in a complex scenario. Look for the simplest, the most reasonable, and that's your true answer. And when you look at, well, how are they 2-13? How are they, look at their roster. Look at the construction. Look at the knuckleheads that were put in charge in the front office. I mean, look at where this has been going, with Jerry's, puppet mastery for several years. I mean, don't try to, maybe we're not platooning the right way, or we're not getting enough matchups, or so and so. Stop. This is how it was put together. Now, I got to say, Andrew Vaughn, I mean, come on. You could go through the lineup and you could single out just about everybody. And I do feel bad for these guys. Sure. But we were told this was going to be a better brand of baseball, like the bad baseball. That's where I say, okay, you might have thought this was going to be a bad team. Sure. In 2024, but we were supposed to be at least a better version of last year. Like, we might not be winning games because we just didn't have the horses, but we're flat out, like, we're shooting ourselves in the foot here. We're beating ourselves, and we're facing teams that are just better prepared. They play a better brand of baseball, and they've got the horses. I mean, when you go, what is it, 1-9 against the AL Central to start things off, you and I were trying to think about some positive things going into the season, like trying to twist maybe a path where this White Sox team could hang around in April and May. And the path was beating your division, because when you looked outside of the AL Central, you saw teams that were built for October and beyond. Mm-hmm. So when you can't beat your division, which is unbelievable, all that talk about, thank goodness we're in the AL Central, man, they heard that. The rest of the AL Central put that up on their bulletin boards in their clubhouse or whatever, and they took it to heart. And then you can't beat your division. Well, the teams that are coming through, whether it's on the south side or where you're traveling to, they're not going to mess around with you, because they're definitely a better ball club. So, it's like, I get it. We weren't supposed to be that great. we weren't supposed to be this bad though, Pat, and this way that they're playing.
Well, then, it's really, I'm at a loss for words. I mean, you really can't. You can't change it. It's not going to get any better. There's nobody really in the minors that you're going to call up now in this situation and expect that they're going to help. There's no reinforcements coming. The guys that are hurt are going to be still on the shelf for quite some time. I think it was Andrew put in or Drew maybe put in the chat. What do you do with Andrew Vaughn? What do you do in these situations? Do you put him down to AAA? I don't know that that really helps him, in my opinion, Nick. And I'll due respect to Drew and saying he wants to see more Gavin Sheets. I get that. Gavin has been I guess one lone bright spot in the lineup and actually doing some type of production. But to me, it's like, listen, you'll let the kid continue to get there and get in the box and get swings. And it's not like he's going to get more at bats down in AAA. And I don't know that his confidence kind of comes back. Maybe it does. Maybe he beats up on some AAA pitching and he feels good and finds his swing. I don't know, but boy, I didn't think we'd be talking about moving a guy like Andrew Vaughn down to AAA. If you would have asked us that maybe after, maybe not last year, but the year before for sure, because we're looking for this guy to be the next guy. Really, we thought about this guy being maybe a star on our team, maybe not a superstar in the league, maybe not, an all-star level player, but a guy that you can go, man, when that guy's up to the plate, he's going to get the job done for us. And he's just become, I don't know what. I mean, I said it last week. I think the guy is a bust, and he hasn't done anything to prove me wrong since then.
Well, they mentioned, I think it was maybe Nicky Lopez in the post game. There could have been a few that talked about pressing. Everybody's trying to press right now. I think the wise, mighty Pedro talked about it in his post game comments. Everybody's trying to be the hero. Everybody's trying to be the player that turns it around. And, that's the issue. When you're off to this kind of start, everybody's examining, everybody's maybe trying something different. Everybody is under the microscope. And with a guy like Andrew Vaughn, that I think he probably is looking at his past and is like, well, I haven't really lived up to what people expected. And I'm not starting that way in 2024 at all. At this point, it's just like, what do you just keep playing him? I guess let him hit his way out of it somehow. I'd like to hear from like the hitting coach. I'd like to hear from just get a little insight into the process, because maybe it turns around. But if you're not putting in the work, the correct work, you just nothing's going to change. You're doing the same thing over and over. Benintendi, I mean, woof, that line. His offensive numbers, we heard about the source a hand last year. He felt bigger. He felt stronger. He's ready to go this year. He looks like he lost it. Whatever he had, and it definitely wasn't $75 million worth. Whatever he had, he looks like it's a complete.
It was
shadow.
Talked about this week on the radio, at least on ESPN 1000, which is all I can speak for. But is Andrew Benintendi, is that contract the biggest or the worst contract in White Sox history? Now, I know that not going to sit here and probably, because we're talking about it on the fly. But just off the top of your head, would you agree with that statement that the Andrew Benintendi, given the fact of the production that we've gotten, the amount the contract was, and the fact that it's the highest ever given out by the White Sox organization, is it the worst contract that the Sox have ever given out?
Oh, man. So I think we get lost in the highest ever with the White Sox because they don't pay anything. So $75 million. So those types of deals that he got, they should have had a lot of those already, so we shouldn't be fixating so much on the money. But because, there has been a lack of those big contracts, and, we analyze that part of it. But I'm not seeing anything productive. I still don't understand the Larry Garcia extension from years ago. We gave some goofy money to some relievers in recent history. I think that's something to maybe circle back on for next week. worst contracts in Sox history. How does Benintendi, stack up with everybody else? But it's so like when I say like this roster was kind of built for failure, there were still players that we expected some sort of production out of. And I expected it from Benintendi. I expected it from Vaughn. And I expected it from Robert and Eloy and Moncada. I didn't really feel like Eloy was going to play the amount of games he wanted to play, but I was happy with what he was doing in the spring. I was happy that his body was responding. He was getting, production out of that. But the regular season is a different beast. And we saw the abductor strain. And then now Moncada, Pat, goes down this past week with the same thing, an abductor strain, which looked horrible. Him running to first base, and 3 to 6 months was the timeline. Chris Getz is bullish that, we'll be getting all three of these guys back sooner than expected. But you want to talk busts? I mean, how disappointed are you with Moncada? And I'm not here to like blame, like, well, it's the trainers, it's him, there's a lot of blame to go around, and there are injuries happening all around, MLB. Why it keeps happening with these three players, we could definitely create our narratives with that. I think Ozzy might have said it, and Steve Peredzinski from Sox on Tap tweeted it out. I think Ozzy said something like, they might be, kind of in shape to look good, but they're not in baseball shape, which is why a lot of these things might be happening. So, I mean, where's your disappointment level with Moncada now?
Well, for me personally, I mean, for those that have been listening to this show for, maybe more than 3, how long have we been on together, Nick? You and I, is this year 5?
This is our 6th season, believe it or not. 6th season.
Holy
well, you and I 5. I'm sorry.
You and I 5 together. Yeah, I'm not an original cast member. But I've been saying for at least the first 3 years I've been a part of this show that, when we were doing, and then we didn't even do it this year, did we? Didn't even do season predictions. We normally go through the day, how many home runs, who's going to lead the team.
We were very stats driven years ago, and I think we kind of just eased back on that, knowing what type of year this might be. And
we just thought nobody's going to hit a home run. So why would we pick who's going to hit the most home runs? But I would always go, this is the year that Moncada is our team MVP. Like, he's going to be the guy that because we'd heard for years about the tools and the talent and where he was when we got him. And I think we also got emotion involved with it because you so wanted it to work out, because he was part of the trade that started kind of the movement in a different direction in terms of we're building up talent that's going to be, the guys that are going to turn into not just, good players, but superstar level players. And we're going to have some, and this is one of the guys. And I kept hoping that it would be, him. And I thought, okay, this is left-handed power that we desperately need. This is, and then he turned himself into a pretty good defensive third baseman, which was fantastic. He's a switch hitter. He can cause a lot of problems. He's got a little bit of speed. He can run the bases well. That's what we were all perceiving. So he seemed like a somewhat of a 5-tool player. And when you're not available, Nick, I mean, what good is it? What good is all that talent? And if you can't display it on the field, and then you fast forward to the year of, the COVID year, and that, and that really took a lot out of him physically. He got it pretty bad, and he couldn't physically play the game, I think, like he would have liked to. And then it was always something with him. It's always in a back. It's always a strain. It's always a leg thing. It's always a something. And to the point where
there's always a grimace on the face.
Yeah. To the point where our manager at the time is telling guys not to run out ground balls. And now we switch from don't run out ground balls to run hard, and they're still getting hurt. So it's just a maddening situation with him. In terms of my disappointment level, I guess I'm just more sad because I think it's a guy with a world of talent that just will eventually be wasted, and you'll never really see the ceiling for Yoan Moncada. And a lot of people maybe will look at him and maybe it's right. I don't know. Maybe perception is reality with all the other stuff that he's got going on in terms of, the music videos and all that other stuff that surrounds him. And then you see the production on the field or not being on the field. He's going to get looked at, especially in this town on the South Side, as like, come on, dude. we just want you to love the game and want to be out there and, put your best effort out there and put your body in the best shape it can be to be available. And I don't know that he does that.
Yeah, I don't know what his off-season, workout scenario is like, but the results, like what we continue to see, these soft tissue things, there's a lot of fingers to, point at it. There is something about guys getting paid a lot of money early in their career, and the Sox like to do that. They like to lock guys up early on, sign them, and then as a fan, I sometimes wonder about motivation. Like, well, you just got paid. You got paid a ton for not really doing much yet.
Yeah.
And do you take your foot off the gas a little bit as an athlete? Again, I don't want to question, but I have to now start wondering, like you're trying to create different scenarios, theories, angles of why is this happening? And maybe I have to just go back to Achman's razor philosophy that I mentioned earlier. It's just like, maybe his body won't allow him to do what he wants to do. He's not as talented as, we were led to believe. Maybe we as fans hyped it up more than it should have been. I don't know, but I'm ready to cut bait on him, cut bait on Eloy, keep Robert around a little bit if you can. But I think Robert's like, please, somebody offer a ton. I'd like to get out of here now. Somebody that, is coming to the South Side, though. Things are so bad, Pat, that Tommy Pham is going to help out and try to right this ship. A journeyman outfielder. I don't think his offensive numbers really jump off the pages, but he's going to be headed to the South Side, it sounds like, as another option.
Well, look at me. It's a good thing I can't get out of my seat because I have to be next to the mic. Otherwise, I do a back handspring. I'm so excited for Tommy Pham. Again, just another guy. I mean, you keep bringing in just guys that you're going to put them in a lineup and it's not going to make the rest of the lineup any better. And again, I'm not expecting Chris Getz at this point to be able to turn, water into wine, right? It is what it is at this point. So you're just going to continue to bring in warm bodies and try and, put a Band-Aid on a shark bite, I guess. But yeah, I mean, is Chris Getz's hands really tied at this point? Yeah, there's not going to be any deals to be made. You're not going to really do much, I don't think, before the trade deadline in terms of building for the future. So you're just going to have to watch and watch this team really just flounder. And again, it doesn't. Does it get your seeds hot? I don't know.
No, it's just with everything that's going on and the injuries and the revolving door, and we're going to bring Colas up, and then we're going to send him back down.
By the way, what the hell is that? Why would you do that?
You could make an argument that there needed to be an arm. We needed to bring up an arm, but it's like, why are you doing this to Colas? Like this guy is.
You erase an option.
Well, I think because he was brought up last year and went through all of that and sent down, I don't know if it mattered as much. It's more of what are you doing to this guy? Like, do you have faith in this guy? Do you want to see this guy develop at the big league level? Like, what are you wasting your time with, Kevin Pillar and some of these other guys? Is Colas part of this organization long term? Are you going to make a serious answer with that? Or are you going to do what you've kind of done with, players in this organization and just, mess around with their futures, and just hang on to them and play them in weird spots. And, I'm surprised he didn't come in and play first base, for an inning or something. I mean, it's just a bizarre how things are run. And when you're losing and everything is going bad, you can jump all over moves like that and say, what are you doing? What the hell is going on with this organization?
You know what I did the other day, Nick, just to feel good, for about 20 minutes of my life. I'm scrolling around YouTube and I'm, just for, just whatever, just kind of just some mind numbing stuff just to chill out, and I came across all White Sox walk-off home runs since 1991. And that was a great 20 to 25 minutes of my life. You heard some great Hawk calls in there. And it's just, you saw some guys that you forgot were on the team that contributed at some point. and hit a walk-off home run. Robin Ventura was big for the walk-off home run. I forgot about that. A lot of
Grand
walk-offs.
slams. He had a lot of electricity.
Yeah. So if you're just looking to feel better about your life, just go to YouTube and find that 1991 to now White Sox walk-off home runs. It's glorious. It'll make you feel really, really great inside.
You got the past, man. I said something about, I think it was Saturday's loss. Like, this is where I appreciate the 2005 World Series. I know people don't like talking about it, almost in the same vein of the 85 Bears. And why do we have to keep bringing it up? And here we go. We're going to roll out these players and we're going to discuss this team. And that's all we have.
Yeah.
And you and I were at a good age where we could, appreciate that. And we watched just about every game we could. I mean, we were out and about. We watched a lot together. We watched the playoffs. I mean, we got to experience that. That really happened. That wasn't a expectation or a promise or, nobody that's been around baseball, penciled this in and said, oh, watch out for this team for the next couple of years. That really happened. And it's pathetic that we have so few of those in our history. But you tend to, in these moments where you just know it's going to be bad this year, and then you watch it and you're like, wow, this is really bad. This is worse than I expected. They are failing at all of the things they said that they were going to be good at. You got to go back to when there were actually good moments and just say, okay, I did see good White Sox baseball at some point.
Does that, so do you think, and I don't know, because they seem very tight and they love each other, but is Getz, pulling Pedro into his office and saying, listen, man, I put it out there to the fans and the media, whether it was lip service or not, that we were going to be a smarter baseball team. And we were lockstep on that. Remember Pedro, and we talked about it. And if I'm evaluating you right now as a manager and your coaching staff, not just you, it's not just one guy that does everything in terms of the direction of a ball club on the field every day. But if I'm evaluating you and your team and your coaches, you're failing at the few things that I thought we could be better at. So please explain to me, Pedro, how we are going to at least turn that around. And I'm not asking you to turn it around and equate it to wins, because I don't think that's fair. I think it's just, but I think it is fair to ask, why can't we do these little things that you learn when you're in Little League better? Why?
Yeah, I think you'd have to then, I would assume Getz would kind of get into the weeds with Pedro of, I've got to sit in on preparation. I'd like to sit in on meetings. What are you guys talking about? What's the pitchers, the hitters, like what's your game plan? Like what's the information that's being collected that gets disseminated for these players? Like, when you go through drills and in between games, and when you take a BP and, what's the approach? Because, I vouched for you. Like, you were my guy. I very well got you hired.
Yeah.
And I think Pedro knows he can't get another job like this at all. This is it. This is his job. Because if he gets canned, when he gets canned, nobody's looking for Pedro Grifol. No one's saying, I really got to get Pedro Grifol. Maybe somewhere in the organization, maybe he's thrown at a bench coach or a third base coach or something, but I don't see him being a manager anytime soon. So he knows that Pedro's got to say anything he possibly can, anything at all, to hold on to this gig. And Getz, I don't know how much rope Reinsdorf is giving Getz. I mean, Reinsdorf spoke extremely highly about Getz, and obviously there was no search. Getz is the guy. So it all comes down to what is the vision for Reinsdorf? Because if he doesn't care, if he just says, look, I'm really trying to get this stadium, folks. I need to get this South Loop Stadium. I need people to pay me billions of dollars. Figure this out. I'm not paying anything. It's got to get built. This is what I want. I'm not too concerned about this team. Then nothing's really going to change. He's going to keep the people that he's close with, the connections, everything's going to keep, like a little family, like a little mom and pop thing. I mean, if he really cares and if he thinks, wow, if this keeps going the way it's going, maybe no one's going to want to give this money to me. Maybe it just doesn't. People are going to say, "Go ahead, take this to Nashville. I don't care. Get out of here. You're not running." Try building a team before you build a stadium, Jerry. Like, try actually building a real team. Put your money up there and build a team. If he's concerned about that, I think he absolutely has to have serious conversations with Getz. I don't think Getz is going anywhere. I heard a rumor, something got kicked around that Jerry was not only in attendance to Sunday's game, but that he was going to talk to Pedro after the game, like a real, see me in my office, Mr. Grifol. Maybe they, having a couple of milkshakes together and just laughing it all up. I don't know. I mean, why is now Jerry all of a sudden micromanaging this thing? I mean,
is it that, or is it in response to the story that came out this week that Jerry was ready to can Pedro, but he didn't because of the financial ramifications it would have had, and then he's got to backtrack that and say that ain't true. All of a sudden. So, maybe that's a clearing of the air there, possibly. But I don't know why.
Why'd you have to do it on Sunday? Why didn't you do it, on Friday? The start of the series back at home. Hey, I wanted to just talk with you really quick. That's all completely untrue. Like he says a lot of the things that come out about Jerry, everything's denied. Nothing actually happened. I didn't say anything. I don't know. Again, it's why is Pedro going to stay the manager? Because he's got another year on his contract. Jerry doesn't like to just pay people for not, doing work. And I think, Getz continues to vouch for this guy, and Jerry, I don't know if Jerry's trusting Getz and is maybe hands off and just doesn't care. Like we want him to care. That's always the big thing, right, Pat? It's, Reinsdorf is ruining our lives. Like, why doesn't Reinsdorf do this? Why doesn't Jerry do that? He doesn't think that way at all. Yeah. I mean, not even close to how we operate as Sox fans, how we want him to allocate money, how we want him to have the desire to win and be competitive. He's doing it on his terms. So when you try to get into that mentality, then that's why you have Getz and Grifol still around here.
Yeah, and you have to remember this is an owner and that has said, whether it's been, again, another thing that I think he's refuted, but has said, if you're going to own a team, you're best off trying to be in second place, because you show your fan base that you're trying to win, but you don't have to put all the money that it takes to, to produce a winner. And he's also an owner of a team that doesn't own his own stadium, that has to pay some type of lease, but that is greatly reduced, or he doesn't have to pay anything or something crazy like that if they draw under 2 million people every year. He's successfully done that year in and year out. He's got a sweetheart deal with the Sports Authority, or wherever it is, the Sports People of Illinois, whatever the hell that organization is.
I hope it is Sports People of Illinois Unite.
Yeah, the Human Fund, People for Humans. So again, he looks at things a lot differently, and there was a caller again into the radio station this past week, and I think that he was possibly, I don't think he gives out his real name, but he speaks to like he's got some very inside knowledge, like he was a part of the board maybe, or part of the he takes care of the trustees and all that kind of stuff. He was a trustee, or is, or I think he was a trustee at some point. And he mentions all the time, he's like, listen, Jerry, and where he cares about the fans and cares about winning, is probably about 6th or 7th on his list.
Sure.
It's like, and it's weird because it's like the organization tries so hard to pump out the narrative. And I really hate when people say the narrative a lot, because it really gets under my skin, because that's become a popular term. Oh, that's just your narrative. But they really try and pump out this Jerry cares. Jerry really is baseball loves the game, and it's he doesn't.
That has to be a T-shirt giveaway.
If you are out there and you are a person that's a White Sox fan and you believe that Jerry Reinsdorf cares about you as a fan, or producing a winner, I think that you really need to take your license, get your license taken away. You shouldn't be driving. You shouldn't be on the roads. You should not be allowed to.
People who say that, Pat, though, are like they're involved in the organization. They will, oh my good, they will protect him. You know, I told you about that time I went on a tour of the stadium way back, like this was like 2017 or something. Took a tour of the stadium, and the woman that was giving the tour, like, yeah, she was just trying to get through the facts. I mean, she was just literally just giving us a tour. I mean, I don't think she really knew, you know, her information very well, but she was with the club for a very long time, you know,
Yeah.
a protected soldier to Jerry Reinsdorf. And, you know, that's all we heard about was Jerry. You know, he cares so much. He comes to every single home game, and, you know, he's always attentive. And, you know, it was just nothing about, he's an amazing presence. That's, and it's just a big eye roll for me, but yeah, I agree with, I don't deny any of that. I'm sure that's all true.
But I digress, because we seem to go down that alley, and it's unfortunate with the way this team is that's where we go, is the lack of care and the ownership. And I feel like that's a chord we play a lot here, and it's understandable. But I want to go back to, if you don't mind, you know, let's go back to the Pedro talk and the Getz talk and the, you know, the lack of fundamentally sound baseball that's being played. You obviously played up into your high school and college age, and you've been on a lot of teams before where I haven't, right? I'm just a ninth coach on a travel team for my son right now. So, you know, do you think at this level, you know, where these guys are at, it's like, okay, we got to do more infield. We've got to do more of this. We got to do more drills. We got to do more. Is pressing and doing more, will that make it better? Or is it going to just be exhaustion and people won't care eventually? Like, how would you turn it around if you were coaching this team?
That's a great question. I don't think more of those types of things is necessarily the issue. You know, this is stuff that I think there are a lot of mental errors going on. You know, there it seems to be some miscommunication. Like, I hate to say the term meeting, but I think that's something that happens quite a bit with big league clubs. Is they have a lot of different types of meetings. I mean, you were broken up into different groups as a roster, as a club, you know, and that's what happened in high school and in college. It's like all the pitchers get over here. Now relievers are going to be broken up with starting pitchers, because you're going to be working on different things. And you're going to be game planning different ways, you know, and outfielders met, which is outfielders and infielders. And there was all team messages, but like those all team messages were being hammered away in spring. So I guess you kind of have to, maybe you have to have a closed door meeting and roll some film, you know, as they do in football. Like, play it back for these guys.
Yeah.
And just say, this happened. This actually happened. The two of you almost colliding, the ball falling here, like you getting picked off, you know. But at the end of the day, though, it's also just talent. You know, it's just lack of talent. Like, we are just being outmatched. And a pitching staff that was surprising a lot of us at the beginning of the season for the first 2-3 weeks is starting to get caught up, you know, because of their track record. They are who they are.
Yeah.
You know, now Crochet, you know, he got caught by the Cincinnati Reds. I don't think it was completely his fault. You know, I think there was some bad umpiring, which has been a theme this season, but he was touched up, man. He's mortal. And that's to be expected from Garrett Crochet. I mean, This is his first real run at things, but look at what he's doing, though, striking out, limiting his walks. I mean, he's still the talk in terms of starting pitching, in terms of the bright spots for this White Sox team. So I don't see how you turn it around. You know, I think you're gifted like a group of guys, and you know, there's some marginal things. You know, I talk about lineup construction quite a bit and how you handle your lineup. But like, what is Getz saying to Grifol, though? That's the other thing, is because if Getz is limiting Grifol from doing a lot of the things that maybe he wants to do, or he wants to do more and he can't, because Getz is like, I can give you Tommy Pham, but buddy, I can't give you much else. But it's just this sense of baseball, though, that they're playing. I know the talent wasn't going to be there. It's just, it almost looks like they don't care. They just don't care. And you talked about apathy at the beginning of the show. I get a sense of that just going through the motions right now, because you're off to a 2-13 start and you're like, woe is me. I knew this was going to be a tough season. Now it's in reality and it's a disaster.
Yeah, I would have to imagine there's players that have already checked out, which is insane to think about since it's only April 14th today, right? There's so much baseball left, and I'm not saying that in the sense of it's early, we can turn it around. It's that, boy, if you've already checked out now, what's it going to look like in July? How are these guys going to get motivated to come to the ballpark and play in August when it's, 98 degrees? It was a warm day today, but 98 degrees and humid. I think,
if, the whole one game at a time thing and the whole flush it stuff, which is a little sneak preview to, our Pedro Grifol quote of the week. I get that. It's laughable. It's just so corny that he's kind of used that as his token saying, but you cannot do anything about what just happened. Somehow, some way, you as an individual player have to say, how can I improve on what I just did? How can I improve on my approach at the plate? Can I be better prepared when facing certain pitchers? My defensive alignment, is there better communication? How can I be the change that I want to see, on my team? For pitchers, it's a whole different beast. It's mechanical stuff. It's, am I trying to overthrow? Am I trying to be too cute? Am I getting overextended on a certain pitch? Am I not, that is a whole different thing that you really have to go back and trust eyes that are watching you and video on how you can write that. From a hitting standpoint, maybe cage time can improve some stuff, but you can't just go in there and just say, oh, I'm just going to get some cage time in, and if anybody's gone hey, getting ready for the golf season, with the Masters and, here we are and in the warm weather, weekend duffers like myself are, hey, I can't wait to get out and play. But, I'd like to go to the range first. And years ago, I just would go hit. I'm going to try to hit as far as I possibly can. I'm just going to hit my driver. Mm-hmm. And that changed over the years because you start working on little things, short iron stuff. You start picking out spots to try to aim and hit. And, you work your way through your clubs. Now it's if I hit my driver just a small handful of times, that's a fine range for me because I'm working on other stuff, footwork, look, it's little things that could turn into, bigger improvements, but you're doing that on the fly right now. There are few off days. You got Kansas City coming to town, they're first place. Then you go on the road, a day off, then go to the road to Philly. They're 8-8. They're hanging around the NL East right now in April. So doing this stuff on the fly is really, it's troubling. I think about Giolito when he was, having that rough go and he put on all the muscle and he was bulked up and he had to all of a sudden, pivot and kind of change things, mechanics and everything, because that was not the right move. Well, you're doing that in season. That's really, that's a really tough thing to do.
So in that locker room, Nick, I mean, obviously you've got your let's call them stars, just for the lack of not having many stars on the team. You've got three of your stars that are out, right? Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily call them leaders though. So you haven't lost any real, player leadership in my opinion. But who is that voice in the clubhouse? Who do you think guys are turning to in this time of, adversity, right? Who can be the voice in the clubhouse to try to rally the troops to call guys out when they've done stupid things? Because I don't even know who that would be.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, is Michael Kopech the longest tenured Chicago White
Do
Sox
you
player
really
right
want
now?
that
That's
to be your leader in the clubhouse? This is a guy, Nick, that you wanted to go on a cocaine high walk through the desert before the season started.
not cocaine. I
What
thought he
was it?
should have went on an acid trip.
Oh, that's right. You,
Just
I'm
go on an
forgive me.
acid trip on the
Forgive
desert,
me
clear his
for
mind. No, I would not advocate for that. Where is he? I haven't seen Kopech in a while.
well, he's got a nice
That's what.
he's had some time off, just kind of
Well,
chill.
exactly. That's what happens when you're relegated to the bullpen, and you think about being a closer, and there's zero opportunities for you to close a game. I kind of forgot about that guy. Yeah, I don't know what happened to your leaders. I don't know. Who are your veterans that have been around for a while? I mean,
Maldonado?
yeah, I mean, Maldonado's been on some successful teams. I mean, Brian Shaw was DFA'd, cleared waivers, and then chose free agency instead of going to Charlotte. So he's a veteran presence. So you don't have him around. That is the problem. It's Ben Attendee. I mean, he's been around, but
Can you be a leader though and be batting under 200? And again, batting average is not the stat it used to
I
be.
think you
don't care,
can.
but
I think you can. I mean, he's an all-star. I mean, he's had some at least a good season. I mean, he's had moments, right? He had some good times in Boston, and I think just somebody that's like seen a lot. I would, what I would respect a teammate that has been on some winning teams, that has been through some difficult situations, and like they knew how to talk to players. I think that's very important. Like you know what buttons to push. And everybody's like down on themselves right now. Everybody's pressing. Everybody is just hanging their head. And like a veteran that is a good communicator that could keep like the morale somewhat high. I think that I would appreciate that if I was going through something like this. Now, because you might look at somebody that's raking, just like absolutely demolishing, which we don't really have anybody like that, on this team. You have Sheets, the Sheets game from this past week, but that's kind of been about it. But they might not be the ability to be a leader or like see attributes in teammates and in other people to help them, like help them rise up. They're just like, hey, I'm crazy talented. This is how I do it. That's all I know. I can't help anybody out. It's like, good luck. All of you, good luck. I'm just going to continue to be.
You like the Talladega Nights quote? I eat crap excellence or something like that, whatever he said. But listen, if you don't have the problem lies, Nick, that we're having this discussion and we don't know who the leader would be in the clubhouse. So that just tells you really the answer right there, that there isn't anybody in the clubhouse that really has that ability to do so. So you just have a bunch of guys looking around at each other. And I don't think anybody's able to or willing to step up.
Well, and that's where Grifol comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I think that's where Pedro Grifol comes in. That's where I think, like, what is a manager worth? Like, what's the point of baseball managers? Like, how much impact can they really have? It's about managing personalities.
But I don't mean to cut you off, but I just think that, a really good manager has, 3 or 4 guys that are his guys that run the clubhouse. And I don't think a manager should have to be in there, rah, let's go, guys. I just don't feel that way. I think it's got to be the leadership from within. And those are the teams that really have good clubhouses.
I don't know if you need to be doing that rah stuff and screaming at people and like getting just in a crouched position, like nose to nose, just verbally undressing them.
Why are they in the crouched position? What do you mean by that? Can you expound on that?
I think of that. What is it? Was it Will Forte or there was an SNL bit where Will Forte was just going off. And I think Peyton Manning might have been the guest or something. And Forte was in the basketball locker room. Maybe it was a high school basketball team. And he just was going bananas, berserk. And you get in that crouch position, kind of like a motivational speaker, Chris Farley. And you're just like kind of right down into somebody's face. because they're sitting on the bench or something, or in their chair by their locker. You're trying to get in their eye level and just really
okay. I
get
got
in
it.
their face.
I thought maybe like it was like an attack mode type of thing, or paws up, like a cat. And
Everybody's standing around, and Pedro
everybody's
is
just crouch
in a
position,
crouch
ready to
position.
pounce on each other.
Well, you know what? Sometimes crazy works, and there needs to be a whole lot of crazy to flip this thing around. I mean,
I'm telling you, let's get to Brooks Boyer. Let's get to Brooks Boyer. We got to have manage the team for a day. You would sell out that place if you said, "Listen, you know what? For next Sunday's game, show up on a Monday night, and if you're the first 30,000 fans, we're going to draw one of you to manage the team next Sunday." I would go. Would you go for that chance?
Absolutely.
100%.
I'd buy 2 tickets.
Okay. Well, that'd be that. We'll put that memo in.
So again, look, you can go over the stats, you can go over the numbers, you can crunch everything, crunch it again. It's not good. I mean, near last in baseball in almost all offensive categories. Just the amount of runs scored, I think 34 runs scored, something like that, just atrocious. On base percentage, something that we thought was going to change with this mentality, this way the Sox were going to produce, the type of baseball that they were going to play. I think they were tied for last with the Oakland Athletics in terms of on base percentage. Sox have drawn the least amount of walks, which goes hand in hand with your on base percentage, and not doing very well with the stolen bases and not being able to throw people out either. Again, just a few of the things that I remember hearing about that was going to change. Be ready for this way of baseball. We're going to be taking extra bags. We're going to be disciplined at the plate. I mean, Robbie Grossman comes along. I think he's been the highlight in terms of getting on base. Again, there's not a lot to brag about at all with this team. I try to find things that, well, at least they're doing this, or this seems to be trending. I mean, you got Garrett Crochet, and hey, Sheets is not as bad as I thought he was going to be, which is a horrible, like that I will never, you shouldn't say that to him if I ever meet him. You're not as bad as I thought you were going to be, Gavin Sheets. He's got pop in his bat. It's just few and far between. You need so many more guys in a lineup that can create that danger and that balance. And, it's just not there.
So, Nick, before we record, because we're getting close to Pedro Grifol quote of the week time, I'm excited about that. We'd love to chop that up a little bit. Before we, get together and do this again next Sunday, how many wins will the Sox have how many more additional wins will the Sox have before you and I look at each other's beautiful faces again?
You got Nick Nastrini going on the mound on Monday, which will be his first start. I was kind of excited to see what Nastrini can do. And in terms of positives, Jordan Leisure, I've liked what I've seen from Jordan Leisure. Again, you don't get to see too much of it because the Sox just don't have those situations. He could be trending to be, in the closer kind of role in the future. I've liked Jordan Leisure. I'm excited to see what Nastrini can do. I don't want to put a lot of, pressure. Of course you can't on a guy like that. This is a project. This is going to, this is the year for this type of stuff. Let's just try to be positive and say he has a great outing. He has one of those miracle outings. All those outings that pitchers have against us. It's like, oh, this guy's his first big league, professional outing here, and he just blanks the White Sox. How many times has that happened where we've never seen a pitcher and they've just mystified us? Yeah. Maybe Nastrini does that to the Royals. Maybe some of the Royals magic wears off. Maybe that's a great story to build around. Maybe you need something like that. Maybe Nastrini becomes the new clubhouse leader and team MVP. I don't know. I mean, anything can happen at this point. How many wins, man? I'll say they get 2 this week. They get 1 against Kansas City. And they got 1 against Philadelphia.
I'll say they get 1. So they're putting him on like a 1 win a week pace. Oh, man. So how many weeks in the season are there? you extrapolate that out, I don't think that's 40 wins, right?
I don't think it is. No.
Well, there you go. So
No. It's 24, 25, something like that.
If you can still, maybe we should hedge our bet, our winning the central bet that you and I put in for $20 at plus 3,500 or whatever it was. Maybe we should hedge that now, and whatever the under is on wins for this team,
I'd be open to that.
We should reverse that so we can at least, have something. So we're hedging our bet a little bit.
I mean, you look at it and you're like, how is this team going to win 50 games? Teams, look, it's a long season. You see this in every good teams go on just losing streaks. Bad teams get hot for like a week or so. And to me, it's like, well, how are you getting hot? Like what type of baseball is being played by certain individuals? Like, again, I'm so forward thinking, kind of like, well, who's going to be around this ball club beyond this year? There's a lot of guys on 1-year deals. What kind of production are we getting out of people that are built for 2025? That's why with Moncada going down, and maybe you see some guys like Ryan Ramos or a little earlier than you thought you were going to see. You get a glimpse. They get a tryout. It's going to be some tough watching, man. It's like, that is the understatement probably of the night. I mean, it's going to be some tough watching. I went over one more. And Clevenger's still coming around. We still got Clevenger to welcome back in a White Sox uniform. So he might be back.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Runners in scoring position, Pat. That's something that has troubled the White Sox for a while. It definitely did last year. Something that I know they wanted to work on. If my number crunching is correct, 15 for 95 this season with runners in scoring position. 15 for 95. Yeah.
So that's bad.
That's not good. That's not good.
No.
And
okay.
Yeah, it's just
I don't know what to say to it, Nick. I know that we should probably be talking during a podcast, but I don't know how you.
Sometimes I think you can like just have a moment where you're to let the listener and viewer know that your insides are crushing a little bit, by reading a certain stat or quote or something. I think that's okay. It's like, because you can then pinpoint when a little bit of that fan kind of just crumbled and died right there.
Yeah.
Well, you give it a moment, so to speak.
I do die a little each time I watch the White Sox. So there, it is what it is. I don't understand how you can be so awful and situationally. And again, but this is not a thing that's new to this team this year. This has been happening for a long, long time, Nick. This is not.
Yeah.
This is not just because of this group. It's under this leadership, and you could go back to Chris Getz and him, running the minor league system. For whatever reason. And again, it's not like we've had a cavalcade of different guys coming up and through and making their debuts and having any kind of success of any kind or anything like that. But it's like, what is being taught in this organization to, get guys on and get runners in when they're in scoring position, especially with less than 2 outs. It's been a long, long time since they've been successful in that area.
Before we get to, I got 2 Pedro quotes of the week. There was a moment that happened this past week. I think it was on Wednesday, and I think it was against Cleveland. And it was a great example of, just a microcosm of what is happening with this White Sox team. And the Cleveland was running all over the Chicago White Sox. And Steve Stone, this is why you listen to the guy. I know, he's rough sometimes on social media or whatever, but I love the stuff that he brings out. He's coming from that pitcher mentality, and he called out you got to hold guys on. You got to give a second look. You got to vary up your looks, their base runners leads. I mean, they were taking bases, at will, because our pitchers whatever the situation is, that's either sometimes a catcher situation where they give a sign to the pitcher that you need to look or you need to pick off. I don't know who's monitoring it, from the dugout, but I thought that was a great point of the little things, the little stuff that can change. You can change that. You can change how you handle holding runners on and varying up your looks as a pitching staff. Each pitcher, that's your job. Work with your catcher, work with your middle infielders, whatever it is. But this has got to stop. Runners just at will. And Cincinnati ran all over the Chicago White Sox. So I just wanted to put that in there really quick because just that fundamental stuff, that baseball IQ stuff, out the window.
And how come nobody's telling them? Like at some point, where's cats to come out of the dugout and say, "Listen, guy, here's what I need you to do," and just go out there and do it. Again, he gets a free pass all the time for whatever reason I don't know.
Well, yeah, things absolutely have to change in so many different ways. And you'll be watching, I'll be watching. Here's a Pedro Grifol quote of the week. This was during the solar eclipse, or maybe right before the eclipse. This was Grifol on maybe watching the historical solar eclipse. I'm not going to watch it. It doesn't interest me that much. I'll watch videos of it to see what it looks like. I probably shouldn't say that because, family and baseball, people don't believe, but I believe it. I live it, and that's all that matters. And then this was a post-game comment from Daryl Van Scoven, who covers the Sox for the Sun-Times. Pedro ended up watching it after all. So that was there was a great years ago on SNL. I think Mick Jagger was on, and Mick Jagger was the host, and he was playing Keith Richards, and Mike Myers was playing Mick Jagger. And there's that Mick Jagger's imitating Keith Richards, and he's rambling on as Keith Richards will, and Mike Myers playing Jagger just is like, in English, Keith. And I just sometimes when Pedro rambles on this thing, I just think, in English, Keith. Come again? What are you talking about here? People don't think you believe in family in baseball? I don't know. I'm glad he watched the solar eclipse. I'm glad he enjoyed it. This was after Saturday's loss, and it was a doozy to the Cincinnati Reds. Grifol said that the Sox can't wallow in their losses and already poor start. It can nosedive even more if they don't find a way to turn things around. You've got to flush these things, Grifol said. There's nothing you can do other than get a nice rest and get back at it tomorrow. Try to save the series and get ready for Kansas City on Monday. Maybe they rested, but they were not prepared, and they didn't produce on Sunday as they got swept. So there are your Pedro Grifol quotes of the week.
How many times? I know you don't partake anymore, and that's fantastic. But it's a good thing we don't play the Pedro Grifol flush it drinking game, because we'd have a lot of people having problems these days. Because it's every day. We're always flushing it.
Yeah, and I think he even made some comment like, I know I keep talking about it, but that's what you have to do. I'm serious. You just have to flush it.
He's got somebody holding up cue cards, and he's just reading it.
And I get that. I get the flush it, but then you got to build off of it. You've got to somehow improve. If you throw all of it away, that's no good. Because then you're throwing away all the stuff you did wrong that you should really be remembering from.
Do you really think they're trying to flush it, and they're using too much toilet paper, and they've got a big clog right now, and they can't flush it? I mean, they need a rooter.
You want to talk about promos? Just lean into this and just give out some plungers or something. Isn't like 1-800? Isn't there some? I thought there was a plumber sponsorship. You always see that in the bathroom.
1-800 plumbers. You could see that if you're at the urinal. They got 1-800 plumbers right there for you.
I would say that could be something that they want to maybe slap their logo on. A plunger. Give them out to the first 30,000 or something. They could tie it in. And you could also
kidding me? You'd be giving away plungers for 9 weeks. You get 30,000. As the great
They'll
Jonathan
be
Hood
at
would
the
say, you can
garage
go there and get
sales.
your own section right now. You don't have to worry about getting your own row. You
Yeah, how
can
about
sit
it?
back, relax within your
Yeah.
own section.
Yeah, I heard from a couple people that were at the game on Friday, and they're like, I haven't seen a home Friday game like this with pretty nice weather in a long, long time. A lot of folks dressed as seats.
Well, that happens when you've got 2 wins, I suppose.
Yeah. It is an absolute pleasure to be joined by so many people in the chats week in and week out. And thank you so much for continuing to jump on in the audio and pass this podcast along to other Sox fans in your life. If they could stomach it, we do appreciate that. Subscribe to the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Even if you don't think you're going to watch too much, it really goes a long way. To subscribe, set the notifications on. Sometimes we try to sneak in an emergency podcast, and there hasn't been one
big
of those
news happens. Big news happens, Nick. You and I are on it. You and I cover this team like a blanket.
When big news happens to our Chicago White Sox team, we will be all over that with an emergency podcast. But we do this on Sunday nights, 9:15, on our Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much. We are on Twitter X at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page. Hey, for Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.